Hello and welcome to Magic and Pathfinder 2nd Edition Part 10, Scrolls and Wands. In this video we'll examine the rules for using these items to cast spells, and I would encourage viewers to also check out my video on the Trick Magic item feat to learn how you can activate wands and scrolls even when you do not meet their normal requirements. I'll include a link to that video in the description. Scrolls are consumable magic items that allow you to cast a spell without using a spell slot. Each scroll contains one spell written upon it, and only regular spells may be scribed into a scroll, meaning you cannot cast cantrips, focus spells, or rituals with a scroll. The spell contained within a scroll may only be cast at the level specified by the scroll, which is noted in the scroll's name. For example, a scroll of Fireball 4th level can be used to cast a 4th level Fireball spell and only at that level. It could not be used to cast Fireball heightened higher than that, even if you are normally able to cast higher level Fireball spells yourself. If no level is specified in the scroll's name, then the scroll can be used to cast the lowest level version of its spell. For example, a scroll of Fireball with no level listed in its name contains a 3rd level Fireball spell, since that is the lowest level version of Fireball. Also be aware that scrolls are consumable items, meaning that the scroll is destroyed in the process of casting the spell. Casting a spell from a scroll works in much the same way as casting spells normally, except you need to hold the scroll in one hand, meaning you may need to spend an action to retrieve the scroll before you can use it. Activating a scroll is an application of the cast a spell activity, uses the same number of actions as are normally required to cast the spell, and in order to use the scroll, its spell must appear on your spell list. And note that the only requirement is that it appear on your spell list. It does not need to be a spell in your repertoire, or a spell that you have in your spellbook, or even be a spell level that you're capable of casting. As long as it appears on your spell list, you're good to go. By the way, this is a major benefit of spending one feat to multiclass into a spellcasting class. You instantly become able to use scrolls and wands for all of the spells provided by that class's spell list. No material components or other costs need to be paid when using a scroll, but if the spell requires the use of a focus, you must still provide that focus in order to cast that scroll spell. For example, Continual Flame requires 6 gold pieces worth of ruby dust to cast. When casting the spell from a scroll of Continual Flame, you do not need to provide this gold dust because it is listed as a cost. But on the other hand, Plane Shift requires the use of a magic tuning fork as a focus. Since this is a focus and not a cost or material component, you must provide a magic tuning fork in order to use a scroll of Plane Shift. Also note that when you use a scroll, that spell gains your Traditions trait, and since you are the one casting the spell, you use your spell attack bonus and your spell DC as normal. Next, let's talk about wands. Wands function almost identically to scrolls. Using a wand does not consume a spell slot. Each wand holds one spell of a given level and can only be used to cast that spell at that level. Only regular spells may be cast with wands, no cantrips, focus spells, or rituals. Casting a spell with a wand requires you to hold it in one hand and spend the same number of actions as usually needed to cast the spell. To cast a spell with a wand, its spell must be on your spell list. As with scrolls, the spell's level does not matter. All that matters is that it is on your spell list. Casting a spell with a wand requires no material components or costs, but you must still provide any focus the spell requires, and when you cast using a wand, you use your spell attack bonus and your spell DC as usual. All of that is familiar territory. There's really only one way that wands are different from scrolls. Scrolls are consumed and destroyed after they are used, and wands are not. Instead, a wand can be used to cast its spell one time per adventuring day without any risk, and it can be overcharged to cast its spell a second time that day at the risk of destroying it. Through overcharging, you can use a wand twice per day, but after the second casting, you need to roll a DC 10 flat check. Just a straight D20 roll with no modifiers at all. so you're relying on nothing but luck here. Regardless of the result, you do cast the spell and resolve it as normal. You won't be rolling this check until after the spell is resolved. If you succeed by rolling a 10 through 20 on the die, the wand gains the broken condition afterwards. That's right, a success means you break the wand. And if you fail the check by rolling a 1 through 9 on the die, then the wand is completely destroyed. And again, these checks occur after the casting is resolved, so no matter what, you will get the second spell off. And then you need to see if you merely broke or completely destroyed the wand in the process. The difference between being broken and being destroyed is a broken wand can still be repaired. I haven't seen specific stats given for wands, but the table on page 577 says that thin wood has 12 hit points and a break threshold of 6. So breaking the wand after overcharging likely reduces the wand to only 6 hit points remaining and would need to then be repaired, likely by using the crafting skill, which would use the wand's item level to determine the check's DC. Note that the mending spell only targets non-magical items and therefore could not be used to repair a broken wand. And if anyone attempts to use a wand for a third time during the same day, even if it has been broken and repaired earlier that day, then the wand is immediately destroyed and the spell is not cast. Every morning after daily preparations, this is reset and the wand is able to cast one time that day safely again. Also be aware that in addition to normal magical wands like those we've discussed so far, there also exist specialty wands like those found on page 598. These wands function the same as regular wands in most respects, including that they are capable of casting a single specific spell at a specific level for free once per day, and can be overcharged for a second use per day. But each specialty wand applies an additional effect to how its spell is cast. For example, wands of widening each have a single spell of a specific level within them, just like a regular magical wand, but when you cast that spell with a wand of widening, it has an additional effect. For example, a wand of lightning bolt widening can cast lightning bolt at 3rd level once per day without spending a spell slot, but when you do so, you spend 3 actions instead of 2, and the length of the lightning bolt's line is increased by 10 feet. Essentially, this wand lets you apply the widened spell metamagic feat to the casting of lightning bolt, but only to that spell of that level and once per day. You could not use this wand to apply the widening effect to any other spell, including your own casting of lightning bolt, even if you spend one of your spell slots to do so. Wands of continuation and wands of widening can be crafted to cast any spells that meet their requirements. Other specialty wands can only be used to cast one specific spell as detailed in their description. Wands of manifold missiles only cast magic missile, and wands of smoldering fireballs only cast fireball. But when they cast those spells, they do so with an added effect. For example, wands of slaying can only cast Finger of Death, but if that casting slays its target, then the victim explodes in a blast of negative energy that damages all living targets around it. Before we close, I'd like to take a moment to thank all of my patrons. These videos would not be possible without their continued generosity and support. Members of the How It's Played Patreon community receive special benefits like exclusive content and getting to vote on the topics I cover. Visit the links shown at the top of the screen and in the description if you'd like to know more. If you would like to support this channel and help it grow, the easiest way to do that is by subscribing and clicking the bell icon so you get notified when new videos release. And I can always be reached through Twitter and Facebook too. Thanks for watching, take care, and happy gaming!